Hello everyone, I'm Steve Wyss and I'm joined by Kevin Harper for the latest edition of the All Sports Betting Podcast Cricket World Cup 2019. Finally, India are coming to the party. First match for them in the tournament on Wednesday against South Africa, and this match is from the Oval. So a debut match for India in this tournament. They've been watching on the sidelines, everyone else in action. South Africa have already played 2 matches and lost both of them. So it's almost in the must-win territory for South Africa already. It feels like. Are they very much a wounded animal right now, Kev?
Possibly, Steve. Before I answer that, though, let me just correct you. It's from the Hampshire Bowl, Rose Bowl, Ageas Bowl, whatever you want to call it, Bowl, down in Southampton, not the Oval. It's the second game of the day that's at the Oval. Are South Africa a wounded animal? They should be. They didn't really put up much fight in either of their first 2 games, did they? So I just wonder if they've come here now accepting their fate, that they're not a particularly good side. And we're just going to see what happens. I think, it's a bit early to say that they're out of the tournament when you think that even England have lost a game now. 3 defeats from 3, though. That you've got to be looking at them winning the last 6 to qualify, because their net run rate's terrible already. So we'll find out what they're made of here, but I'm pretty sure I already know what they're made of, and I've made no secret of that in the podcast that we've done to date.
Yeah, we all know that the big problem is definitely this sort of batting in depth. It is certainly one issue for South Africa. On the bowling front, on paper, it's not the worst attack, is it? And they've performed well in patches in this tournament so far. Could they give India some problems in this match with the pace attack?
It's not the worst attack in the world, but you've got to remember that Ngidi's injured now, picked up a hamstring injury against Bangladesh. They've ruled him out for 10 days, so he's definitely out of this one, likely to be out of the next one as well. Dale Steyn will come back for this game, but well, who knows if he's fit and if he can do the course and distance. So really, they're relying an awful lot on Rabada, aren't they? Because, well, $1 Million Morris has, he goes around the park at a silly rate at the death. And Fekla Kwayo, he's medium pace, isn't he? If he's taking batches of wickets at international level, something's gone tits up. So, yeah, they've got a good attack, but it's probably at its weakest in this match. They're not going to get no seam movement down at Southampton. I'm a Hampshire fan myself. I haven't seen a ball move off the seam going on 15 years that the place has been in operation. So they can forget that idea. And are they really going to get anywhere with spin? Again, I'm not so sure. So I'd like to see where South Africa go in this match, really, unless Rabada really tears in and sticks it up India. But it's not like India's batsmen don't like the short ball, is it? They showed when they were over here last summer in the Test matches that they're more than adequate playing the short ball now. So really, it's hard to see where South Africa go from here.
Yeah, talking of the injury front, what's the word on Hashim Amla for this game? Is he going to be available?
I'd imagine so, yeah. He was concussed last Thursday, wasn't he? So now 6 days, he should have got that out of his system. I don't think there's a rule in international cricket. There is in county cricket. But they're not in international cricket that stipulates a certain amount of days between, getting clonked on the head and being allowed to play again. So, and also it's needs must, isn't it? So, I would expect him to play. Probably likely to come in for Duminy, perhaps.
Yeah, he's not exactly looked great, has he, in this tournament, Duminy, I must say. So, well, let's talk about the venue then. It's the Rose Bowl, Ageas Bowl, whatever bowl you want to call it, down in Southampton. Here, the weather looks all right actually for this game. Shouldn't be any rain around, so a full day's play very much likely. You know this ground very well, Kev. You've been there numerous times. Tell us a bit more about it.
Big ground, very big ground. Wouldn't like to say whether it's bigger than Durham. Probably not quite. Probably the second biggest ground in the country to Durham, but an absolute flat wicket. One-day wickets down at Southampton are an absolute dream. It's one of the reasons why Hampshire is such a successful one-day side. Big outfield. They'll probably bring it in a little bit here to, like I said earlier in the tournament, to allow for the digital sponsor boards with with all the sort of normal sponsor boards at Hampshire covered up by the usual Cricket World Cup signage. Yeah, usually usually good for scoring runs, isn't it? Pakistan and England played an ODI here earlier in the summer, and Pakistan should have chased down 370, shouldn't they? So yeah, should be full of runs, but there is a caveat to that, obviously, which we'll come on to in a little while.
Yeah, so from the middle of the wicket, I'm just looking at the dimensions here. You've got a minimum 75 metres to clear the ropes. You say maybe a little bit in because of the advertising boards for this tournament, but you've got to give it a good biff if you want to get a maximum on this ground. But like I say, it's usually a very good wicket, so run scoring can be in good supply. But you don't think there are going to be a lot of runs scored in this game? More on that in a minute, but we've got to talk about India because this is their first match in the tournament. What sort of, by the way, if you want to listen a bit more about India, listen to our pre-tournament podcast. We've got a section on India there, which lasts about 5 or 10 minutes. So go back to that one if you need to. But what sort of 11, have they got a settled 11 going into this game?
Probably now, yeah. The two warm-up matches that they had, or the one in particular, settled one of their decisions, didn't it? They weren't sure who to play at number 4, but KL Rahul rubber stamped that with that century against Bangladesh. So the only other option really is whether to go in with 3 seamers, 3 out-and-out seamers. Probably won't. They'll probably go in with 2 spinners and use Hardik Pandya as the sort of third bowling option. And, if they get stuck, people like Kohli can always turn their arm over, can't they?
Yeah, they certainly can. Now, you've got a few bets for this game at this point in time. We mentioned the runs line. You don't think there's going to be that many scored in this game, potentially?
Yeah, not so much runs, but boundaries in particular, I don't think there's going to be many of. There's recent history between these two, Steve. They played an ODI series in South Africa last year, start of 2018. India won it 5-1 against a better South Africa side than this. AB de Villiers played 3 of them 6 games. Morne Morkel played 5 of them. So, that kind of highlights that we should be looking at India to win this game, which I'll come on to in a minute. But if we just go through the runs and the boundaries in that, bearing in mind that many of the South African grounds are a lot smaller than the Ageas Bowl. First game of the series was in Durban, 539 runs scored, 54 boundaries. Second game in Centurion, just 237 runs, 30 boundaries. And then they went to Cape Town for 482 runs, 43 boundaries. Johannesburg was a rain-affected game, 496 runs with 49 boundaries. Port Elizabeth, probably a similar size ground to this one, 475 runs, 48 boundaries. And back to Centurion for the last game, 410 runs, 53 boundaries. Now, those grounds like Centurion are known for being laden with boundaries, Joburg as well. And if they're not hitting 62.5, I'm struggling to see how a weaker South Africa side, bearing in mind AB de Villiers, like I said, played in 3 of those games and he's a boundary machine. I'm struggling to see how we get 62.5 here. It's going to piss down all over the south of England on Tuesday. So the outfield initially could have a little bit of moisture in it. So that will slow the ball down first and foremost. May also juice the pitch up just for the first 5 or 10 overs. So don't be surprised if there's an early wicket or 2 fall. And then we've just said about the size of the boundaries. Also, South Africa are ludicrously poor against spin. In that series that I've just mentioned, Steve, Kuldeep Yadav took 17 wickets in 6 games. Chahal took 16 wickets. So 33 of the, I don't think they took 60 wickets in total, but 33 of the wickets that fell to them too. So I wouldn't expect South Africa to be hitting too many boundaries off of them. 2 matches that South Africa have already played in this tournament. They scored 25 against England, 21 fours, 4 sixes. 26 against Bangladesh, 23 fours and 3 sixes. The oval was inferiorly smaller than the Ageas Bowl. So it's hard to see South Africa getting 30 boundaries. And if they don't get 30 boundaries, then you're looking at India needing well in excess of 30 boundaries in their innings. But I don't think they'll push the boat out in the first game. It's all about winning for them, isn't it? So they'll knock it around. They're not big hitters anyway. People like to hear don't go for many boundaries. Rabada won't go for many boundaries. Stain, in essence, shouldn't go for many. So everything points to under 62.5 boundaries to me. You can, if you ever got, that's at William Hill. if you haven't got a William Hill account, you're probably going to get a decent enough return on the under 580.5 runs at Bet365 if that's a better option for people out there. But, you know, India do run an awful lot of twos, didn't they? And I don't really want them racking up the twos and going over that line. They can hit as many twos as they like in the boundaries. So under 62.5 boundaries for me.
What sort of stake out of 10 would you be looking at for that pick?
5 out of 10 for that one, yeah.
You mentioned Kuldeep Yadav. You actually fancy him in the top India bowler market for this game. The mystery spinner, isn't that what he's got a reputation for being? And you think he's going to... Well, you've already said you think South Africa... We know South Africa struggle against spin. So because they could have all sorts of problems against Yadav.
Yeah, I mean, it's plainly obvious from 17 wickets in South African conditions. He's not going to have got much turnout there, is he? That South Africa simply can't pick him. Might be a little easier now that they've played a whole load IPL season against him. But then when you think of South Africa's top 4 or 5, you've got Hashim Amla, who never played in the IPL, Aidan Markram, who never played in the IPL, JP Duminy, who never played in the IPL, and David Miller. Well, he was out there, but he didn't play much either, did he? So it was only really Faf du Plessis, and by and large, he was out. He'd have been out before Kuldeep Yadav came to the crease. So not many of them have played Kuldeep Yadav other than in that series last winter, and they didn't play him particularly well there. So I don't really see why they're going to play him any better now. You can get 10 to 3, 100 to 30, however you want to pronounce it, 4.33 in decimal on Yadav being the top India wicket taker with 888 sport. And the good thing about taking that is if they share wickets, you don't have to worry about economy rate. So if someone does get after him, you won't lose on economy rate. You'll just get your dead heat, which is absolutely fine. Looks a decent bet to me, really. Maybe Chahal's a danger, but I think Yadav's a better bowler.
Worth a couple of units on that pick then, you think?
Yeah, a couple of units on that one, yeah.
Yeah. How soon do you think Yadav will bowl in the innings?
Probably depends a little bit on whether India bat first or second. If India bowl first, you'd think they'll use the seamers throughout the power play, because I do think there'll be a little bit of juice in the wicket. If they bowl second, maybe straight after the power play. I wouldn't have thought he'll bowl during the power play.
No. So, Kuldeep Yadav, top India batsman there. Bowler, sorry, yeah. Yeah, that would be...
Don't take him as a batsman.
Yeah, I don't want to take him as a batsman. So, in terms of the match result here, India are 1-2 favourites to win. You fancy them to get the business done and with a bit in hand, so you're going to take them on the handicap system.
Yeah, if you're a short price punter listening to this, then you may as well forget what I'm about to say and just plough into that 1-2. But for those of us who aren't short price punters, there's a bit more juice in the 4-5. It's a bet way for them to cover a 4.5 wicket handicap or 18.5 runs. So basically, if India bat second, you can afford them to lose 5 wickets in the run chase. And if they bat first, they've got to skittle South Africa for less than 18.5 runs within what they get. So, for example, if India make 318, then they've got to get South Africa out for less than 300. Just to use simple mathematics on that one. The reason why I'm happy with the handicap, Steve, is the 5 wins that India picked up in that series that I've just mentioned. Their winning totals were 6 wickets, 9 wickets, 124 runs, 73 runs, and 8 wickets. So none of those 5 victories were close. As I've mentioned, AB de Villiers played 3 games, Morne Morkel played 5. They'd have been 2 key players for South Africa. Neither of them were around anymore. Virat Kohli seems to love playing against South Africa. He's got 558 runs to his name in those 6 matches. So he nearly averaged 100 a game in that series. And he's obviously their star man. South Africa are inferiorly weaker. They're so much weaker, I can't even tell you. In this series, none of their batsmen look like they're in particularly great nick, maybe with the exception of du Plessis. Everything points to a big India win to me. I'm more than happy for them to cover that handicap. I don't think it's anywhere near big enough.
So India, and what sort of stake would you be looking at there? 5 again?
Yeah, we'll go 5 with that. The other thing I should also mention, of course, is England have already beaten South Africa by 104 runs, and that form wasn't exactly franked on Monday, was it? So India do look good. I'd get on that pretty quickly as well. I don't think that price is going to last.
I also have a pick for this game. I'm going to put up a performance. You know, I do like my performances. So I'm actually going with Quentin de Kock over 52.5 performance points at Bet365. 1 point per run, 10 points per catch, and 25 points per stumping, which you never know. It might come into play with the stumping. I actually think he hasn't looked too bad to me, de Kock. He's not exactly in brilliant form, but I've seen enough from him. I mean, he's he looked good against England, I thought, at times, and he was unluckily run out, wasn't he? Really, the other day. So I don't really class that as a proper dismissal. So his weakness is probably against spin, but he shouldn't be facing too much of that really early doors anyway. So 52.5 performance points. I think he'll probably get a catch or two behind the stumps. You know, if South Africa do win the toss and bowl first, a bit of juice in the pitch. I always have a bit of concern for India against faster bowling sometimes, and it might be that Rabada gets in there, nick one behind. So, he gives me options, scoring options across the board. Fundamentally, I'd be annoyed if he gets out between 35 and 52, because the batting running line is just at 34.5, which I was close to taking that one, I must say. But I do like to have a lot of different factors in play. So that's my recommendation for this particular game. I've got one more question before we end this podcast to you, Kev. What part of the India team do you least like at this moment heading into the tournament?
As in batting or bowling?
Just anything that would be classed as a negative for India.
Don't particularly like their middle order. Once you get through the top three, maybe four now that KL Rahul's there, don't particularly like what comes after that. MS Dhoni, hit or miss. Hardik Pandya bat's way too high, and but I mean it's plucking straws really, isn't it? Because the top four is so good that 5, 6, and 7 rarely see the cold light of day. Just to endorse your Quentin de Kock pick, he's played one ODI at the Ageas Bowl against England a couple of summers ago, and he made 98. So you know that he likes the ground. He also took 3 catches in that game, so you totaled up 128 points. So you can take that again, wouldn't you?
Well, it seems that players from the southern part of Africa might well like the Ageas Bowl. Gary Balance has a very good record down there. So,
and of course, Hampshire's team made up with them. So they know the way around the Ageas Bowl.
They do, yeah. Right, brilliant. So that covers this game. The next game on Wednesday is at the Oval, and that is New Zealand against Bangladesh, and we'll be covering that in a separate podcast. So from this edition, it's a goodbye from me.
Yep, cheerio, Steve. All the best.
See ya.